continue to breed peace. Short and sweet.
This is Talking to the Dead with Janet Kubik. I'm your host, Joe Oliva. Hello, Janet Kubik.
Hello, Joe Oliva.
So we were talking before the episode about, I told you I had a stat that I thought was really interesting, and I would like your insight on it.
Okie dokie.
Here's the interesting stat that I saw online, that the RCMP, which is our Canadian equivalent, I think, like the FBI, the highest level of police, had 900,000 phone calls to 911, I think, in 2020, reporting that they've seen aliens in Canada.
Wow.
900,000 calls. And so that is 1 in 42 people. I ran the math on the population of Canada and whatever. 1 in 42 people, unless it could be the ssame person calling back multiple times. There probably is a bit of that, right?
899,998. Yeah. And then was one person, and then
yeah, but
I'm just teasing.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's like, I mean, so anyway, I thought it might be interesting if we talked about aliens from a spiritual perspective. What do you think?
I think that's super cool. My question, first of all, is like, did they see what they thought were actually aliens, or are you talking about like UFO sightings, or was there any?
I think it was UFO sightings.
Oh, okay.
UFO sightings.
Well, again, I have to say it always amazes me, the synchronicities. And we've talked about synchronicities before, and it's sort of like the idea of tuning into just the little circumstances that happen, like the little things that call your attention or whatever, and seeing how they play out and how they kind of line up. And the funny thing is just last night, my husband and daughter were staring out the back window because there was a light in the sky.
Did they call the RCMP?
They did not. They were not that person, I don't think, that called the RCMP.
Okay.
But literally just last night, and they couldn't quite figure it out because the light was very still. And of course, what we discovered was that it was a plane that was just so far away, it looked like it wasn't moving. But it was just so interesting that they happened to, question it and be kind of excited about it. And they were a little bit giddy staring at it out the window. And then here we are today talking about UFO sightings.
But that is interesting. I think part of it is people are home because we're certainly, there are a lot of lockdowns in Canada and other countries as well. And so I think people are just sort of looking around and observing a little bit more, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as we're talking, I'm sort of checking in with my guide Myrtle to see if she has anything she wants to offer. And I keep sort of getting this sense where she's talking about, it's the idea of expanding what you know or what you believe to be true. She says that is sort of the most relevant, or the most relevance that this conversation carries today at this time. She says, for there's so much information regarding this vast, vast universe that we exist as a part of. She said, there might be the tendency to feel overwhelmed. So she says, we're going to sort of dial it back, so to speak, to talk about the idea of just allowing one to expand their consciousness, allowing themselves to release preconceived ideas or notions, so that there can be room for what potentially feels at this time like the unbelievable, the impossible, the unfathomable, because she says there truly is so much more to the existence, and there are so many more possibilities within the existence as to how to operate or function or manage humanity. And it's that she's sort of wanting to call our attention to at this time. And I don't know if you just noticed my gaze got sort of pulled from her because the most beautiful, ginormous blue jay, it's huge.
I thought you were going to say UFO, of course.
Yeah, alien just landed outside my window. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at connecting with Myrtle, even without sort of being in that kind of like, you almost might want to call it like a trance state or wherever, where I'm really focused or my gaze is shifted.
Right.
I'm pretty comfortable with chatting with her in various ways, so it didn't distract me too much from her when it happened. But you might have noticed that I kind of did a little. I
didn't notice. I was just thinking while you were talking about how Myrtle is sort of broadening it out, and I wrote down expand what you believe to be possible. That's just my summary of what she said. But I want to focus on aliens today, Myrtle, because it's fun topic. Okay, I'm gonna take it back. Usually we just let her go, but today I'm gonna push. I'm gonna guide her a little.
You're gonna resist, like
I'm gonna resist. I'm gonna push a little bit. Give us something. Okay, so, okay. When I was raised Roman Catholic. I've said it a bunch of times. And the church, I don't know what their thoughts are now, but I think they may have changed. But at the time, they were like, this is a unique planet, and man and women are created in God's image, and we're the only ones around. And you weren't allowed, the religion did not allow you to believe in aliens. But now most people are like, it's such a massive universe. There has to be, we're not the only ones, for sure. The question is, have they visited Earth? Now, that's the next question. I think even if you ask CIA guys and guys in the government, for the US or anywhere else, like, they all would say there has to be life on other planets for sure. But have they visited Earth? Myrtle, yes or no? It's a yes or no binary.
Myrtle or Janet?
No, I want Myrtle.
You want Myrtle. Okay. Myrtle, what do you got?
She's going to give us some vague answer. Come on, Myrtle.
She probably will. So, okay. Let me see what she's got to say. So I will interject just briefly because sort of potentially this was on behalf of Myrtle, but when you said, have they visited? I very clearly and distinctly heard the word inhabit.
Inhabit?
Inhabit. So doesn't that mean...
They inhabit? Oh, so you're saying we're aliens? We're inhabiting the Earth?
Well, oh goodness, this is such a crazy topic.
I know, but it's fun.
It is a fun one. And everybody's going to have varying opinions or views on all this.
When
and that's
you heard
welcome.
Inhabit, tell me more about that, what was coming through.
So to me, I feel like through this process of awakening for myself, the vastness of possibility for me just like blew the roof off the joint, if that's the phrase, and just like became massive. So to me, the idea of there being other beings, other forms of beings, really to me doesn't feel at all out of the ordinary. It's like
in the universe, or are you saying on Earth?
In the universe and here on Earth. Because there's just so much more than we know, than we cognitively know. There's just so much more that exists. And as we open ourselves up to new possibilities and new understanding, that limit just grows and grows and grows and grows. So, I mean, at first you might have said to me, okay, well, aliens exist. And I'd be like, yeah, whatever. And then as I sort of
are you saying years and years ago, right?
Yeah, like in my
I think
past.
Everyone's kind of gone through that journey. Yeah,
right? But as we start to allow ourselves, I think this is sort of what Myrtle's talking about a bit too. As soon as we start to allow ourselves to kind of let go of the limitations, let go of the limited thinking, let go of what's been dictated, let go of what we think we're supposed to know or how things are supposed to be, or even how they've been in our sort of recent past or the past that we're sort of cognitively connected to. If we start to let that go and we start to expand our thinking, then more and more things become possible. And they don't feel so crazy. I mean, are you kidding me? 7 years ago, if you told me that I'd like talk to the dead, I
Yeah.
thought you were nuts, right? Now, for me, it's as normal as breathing. Like it's
Right.
just a natural, normal way of being. I remember back to a few years ago with my eldest daughter, and she was probably only about 9 or 10 years old. And somebody asked her or asked me in front of her, how do you talk to the dead? And I had no idea how to answer. And she just looked at them and she said, it's natural.
Really?
Yes. And I was like,
Because she hadn't, her mind had not been twisted yet to say, oh, you can't talk to the dead, right? Yeah.
Yeah. They haven't been told. I mean, when kids come into this existence, they haven't been told yet what they're supposed to believe or what
Right.
exists or what is truth and what is fact and all of those things.
Right.
They haven't been conditioned. So I think when you start to remove some of that human conditioning that we've experienced in our lives to this point, you really start to feel like, yeah, it's absolutely possible that I live with an alien, or some form of other being. And again, like, what do you think an alien is? Well, like, is there some 6-foot green guy with one eye walking around right now that I just can't see? I don't know. But
I know who they are on there. I know who they are.
Oh, do you? Who are they, Joe?
Think about it. Think about it. Octopuses. They're not from here. They don't look like anything else.
They don't.
And they have like a heart and a brain in each arm or something crazy like that. Octopuses. I nominate the octopus.
You nominate the octopus, but you know what? That's also such a great point, though, because look at the species of animals, like the various kinds of animals on this planet. They are unfathomable. Like, the only reason we know and trust in an octopus as being normal, those are my air quotes, is because we've seen it, we've experienced, we've opened our mind to it, we've allowed ourselves to accept it as being truth, right? So it's like, are we really that far off to think that there are other things that we haven't really discovered yet, or that we have discovered but we just haven't really accepted yet? I also think too, I always look back to the idea of how far we've come for an example, like in terms of technology, right? I mean, if you told people 100 years ago that we would be talking to each other via these little devices, we're not even in the same city, let alone the same room, and we're able to hear each other and see each other, and all of these things felt way beyond the realm of possibility.
Go back 200 years. And the farther back you go, the more unreal it seems, for sure.
Right?
100 years ago, they had the phone. So they might have, well, we can hear, then maybe we can see. But like 200 years ago, forget it. It was all horse-drawn carriage and pigeons delivering messages, right?
Right. So I think that that's sort of the key point with the whole conversation about aliens, it's just allowing ourselves to let go of the rules. And I'm not saying let go of the rules, but let go of what's been dictated and what we've come to trust is truth because we've been told it's true, or even because we've just had an opportunity to see it. Like, we actually literally, again, just had a conversation yesterday with our youngest daughter about phones, and she couldn't even believe that when her dad and I were first dating, like, we couldn't text each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, in her mind, that was just not even a possibility because she's just used to what she knows and what she's surrounded with and what she sees and hears.
Yeah.
So
she was born into this level of technology. And again, in 200 years, what we're doing now is going to seem antiquated for sure.
I don't know if we're still kind of skirting around the clarity of answer that you're looking for today, Joe, but
We are, and we're going to keep digging in. Have you, Janet, ever feel like you've communicated with an energy that could be identified as alien?
yes.
There
And
it is.
again,
That's our
and there
answer.
you go.
That's the whole video.
Right? That's the answer. We're going to just leave it there.
Yeah,
And
and
again,
most intuitives I know say the same thing.
yeah. And I could revert back. I could revert back to insecurity. I could revert back to, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? But you know what? I'm so comfortable now with the idea of authenticity, and I'm so confident that that's just the way that we need to be living in this world, that I'm going to say yeah, because I have had that experience and I've had it more than once.
Right. I have
So there you go.
intuitive friends, as you know, other people, and they all say the same thing that they've. And then it seems like when I asked them, I don't know if this came from you specifically, but it seems like when I asked them, like, what's their message? The message always seems to be, why are you guys wrecking your planet? It's so nice the way it is. And you guys keep wrecking it, like with pollution and this and that, right?
Yeah, I would sort of just broaden it out a little more and just say that I have felt in those situations um, that the feeling is of support, that there
Right.
is a greater sense of support. I mean, that's to me one of the main reasons that spirit is starting to become so much more present in our lives. In terms of literally communicating with people like myself, and there's so many others. They're starting to try to normalize that relationship and remind us that there is more to this. We're not in this alone, and that we are being supported. And so in those few situations, that was sort of the general feeling that I got, that it was, again, just more of a form of support. Cool.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. That's
Yeah,
all.
that's all.
Are you able to channel an alien for the viewer / listener
Wow.
today?
Okay.
We're
I've
here.
never had that.
We're here. We might as well just kind of go for it, right? See what happens.
We might as well. And you know what? We just might as well, because you don't get anywhere if you don't just try. So let me see. And for me, and this is just explaining a little bit of my process right now, I'm going to just ask my guides. So what I would call spirit, right? My spirit guides. I'm going to ask them to assist me, to help me out with making this connection.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So, don't know. Well, some viewers are listening, so they can't really see what's happening with my body. My hands are moving in this sort of fluid motion, and it's indicating to me that we're going farther and farther out into the universe. Okay. I heard the word Palladian, starseed, we hold you. We help to hold you. I'm getting a they as opposed to an individual. The visual that I see is sort of, it almost looks like a human form, but it has no definition. There's no definitive structure to it. It's just sort of more the outline of a human body, but it's very bright and it's just full of light. I don't see any legs. I don't see any feet. It's more sort of, I'm seeing shoulders and the head. We hold you. We help to lift you up. So this is a little more challenging for me to make the connection, so just bear with me. Many of you walking have existed in this place. and have now embarked upon the human journey in order to support its regeneration, which is the process indeed in which you are partaking at this time and with which we are supporting. Okay, she just paused. I'm saying she, it feels like a female energy, although I feel like my voice dropped like an octave. That's how it felt to me. I felt like we were talking, like she's got this very like low resonance, very expansive, very powerful, like just I don't want to say powerful, just very broad. Like she feels very broad.
Can I ask, does she have a special role there, or is she just someone who picked up the phone?
She immediately said leader. So she's
Okay.
some sort of leader. Leader of the Palladian race. She's able to connect because it's her role to remain connected with this existence and those who are traveling from their, I don't know what this word is, from their place in the universe. She said something that I couldn't even understand. So she's softened it or switched it up a little bit to say their place in the universe as the way to describe what she meant to say. She's in a role where she keeps connected to those who are traveling here. She's very invested in what's transpiring in the human existence, and that's why she is the one to speak. Another weird thing is that my hands have gone all tingly, like pins and needles, like, you know, when they fall asleep kind of.
Okay.
And I keep feeling like the need to sort of put my hands.
Does she have a name?
When you said that, she just, the word I heard was light. She's just referring to herself as the light. Oh, this is starting to feel very intense.
Can I ask if we share a dimension, or is she in another dimension?
As soon as you said that, the very first thing I heard was sixth.
Sixth.
So I still feel her presence. And I can really feel like there's an intense feeling. Obviously, you guys can't get a sense of that, but I just feel like a weight through my body. Like everything's kind of very tight in my body. And she means to cause no harm. She's not intending in any way to cause me discomfort. It's just how her energy and mine, it's just how she's sort of resonating with me, or when the energies sort of mix, it's just kind of the side effect of that. So yeah, there's no ill intention to make me feel bad or uncomfortable. She keeps kind of going back to this stance, or making me take this stance. I don't see her doing it, but I just feel this. And it's this sort of sense of holding. Excuse me. It's like holding. They're helping to hold things together, it feels. And every time I talk, I don't know if you can audibly hear the difference, but I feel like my voice is coming from like this lower place in my chest, which is interesting for me to be experiencing. Did you have any questions, Joe?
No. Does she have a
All of this, and you didn't have any questions?
No, I just wanted to see if light would come forward.
Wow.
Any messages for us on Earth? Is there anything that she deems as like sort of an important message for us to understand?
Excuse me. Okay, so she's saying something. I'm going to see if like I can actually let her say it, or if I'll just hear it and share it. Continue to breed peace. Short and sweet. I don't know if you can hear it, but to me, in my being, it feels like my voice is dropping like an octave. I feel like I'm sure it's not that dramatic, but it feels like there's a differential in the way the sound is coming out of my body. So I don't know if I can just feel that or if you can actually detect that.
Do they have fear where they are, like that manifests itself as things like war and things like that?
So for those people who are listening on the podcast, the minute you mentioned the word fear, my head started shaking. No. Fear is a low density energy. It's what holds your beings in their shape. They don't have that there. They don't have that shape. They don't have the matter, the physical matter. And so fear as an associated energy does not exist.
Do they experience time in the same way that we do? I think Myrtle once on one of our podcasts called it a quantifier.
Okay, so again, for those who are listening on the podcast, the moment that you started asking the question, again, my head is shaking back and forth in like they're saying no. So I'm gonna ask if they can talk more about time. I'm not really getting anything. And I don't want to try to like piece something together. I only want to say what I'm legitimately getting. So again, she just sort of shakes her head. And then she's just giving me this indication that here, where we exist, there's a much slower feeling. There's just a slower experience or slower existence. Okay, that's
If
the
there's no
best I can.
if there's no time, then yeah, it would be slower. It would seem slower. Do they have death? I was thinking of like, are they born and then do they die, or they just sort of exist?
She says something about cycles. It's cyclical. But different from here. Whereas here in the human existence, the life cycle requires the soul or energy or entity to enter into the human existence into a physical form. And then once that soul departs, it leaves that physical incarnation of itself behind. She says here we regenerate, but without going to another place, without leaving and then returning. But there is some sort of cyclical nature. There's some sort of regeneration. I almost wanted to say rebirth, and she said she changed that to regeneration that transpires. My arms are getting very tired. Anything else, Joe?
Not off the top of my head. I mean, it's just I just really wanted to see if you could do it. I mean, I knew you could do it, but sometimes when the cameras are on, Myrtle sort of, not that it's a bad thing, but she sort of guides us down a certain path on that day.
Yeah.
So we kind of forced aliens today.
We did. And to be perfectly honest, aliens is a little out of my comfort zone because as we've talked about this many times before, I'm sure on the podcast, you know, I'm still Janet the human. And as much as I feel like I've developed a good sense of my ego and how it affects me and stuff, there's that little voice that chirps in and says, these people are going to think you're nuts. Right? But then at the
that's
same
nothing
time,
new though, like the last 7 years, right? I mean,
right? Yeah. And that's the thing. And again, like we talked about earlier, I think it's just at this point, it just feels like it is my experience, and I just have to share it. And if it resonates, great. And if it doesn't, that's totally fine too. But it is my experience. And the only way we learn is through experience. And as we're talking, the pressure in my ears is very, very intense. So I almost feel like it's hard for me to even kind of hear myself. Like my ears feel kind of full. You know how that happens sometimes. But she's just reiterating that it's time to move through the fear. And she says you can't move past it. You need to move through it.
Right.
Now, see, to me, again, from my experience, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm not sure how much we've talked about that here or not, but the idea of transmuting the energy, of shifting the energy from the negative to the positive, from the dark to the light, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that message really resonates, that idea of moving through it, and as healing as being a process that you move through. You can't just snap your fingers and choose different. You have to continue to choose and feel all the feels, and allow yourself to release stuff. So that makes a lot of sense to me personally, that she would say we have to move through the fear.
Right.
So she has just said it has been an honor. And then that was so neat.
I'm surprised that Myrtle let that happen. She's like the bouncer. She's like your personal bodyguard, literally, right?
Right? Well, I think maybe, and this is just me thinking, I don't know, but I think it's kind of because it's just maybe time.
Yeah.
It's just time for us to not worry and to not stay caught up in what was for good reason. But now we're moving on and we're moving forward, and there's so much more to discover. And that feels like the motto of Ontario, isn't it, or something? There's so much more to discover.
Something like, yeah, they've had
Something
a few
like
mottos
that.
over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just kind of feels like, yeah, we need to just kind of let go and go ahead and go forward.
Okay. Well, this was an interesting episode of Talking to the Dead with Janet Kubik. And
do we need to change it now to like Talking to the Dead and Beyond? Or
I was just going to say
something?
Talking to Aliens with Janet Kubik. Talking to Light. Yeah, cool name. She had, it had, they had.
They had.
Yeah. So if you think that this episode was interesting, please rate, review, subscribe, and more importantly, share it with someone who you've talked about aliens with. We know that 1 in 42 Canadians think they've seen a UFO, so send it to one of those people, right? And visit janetkubik.com, sign up for her email list, and whenever something cool happens, new podcast or whatever it is, we'll shoot you a note, and then you'll be in the know. Okay?
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you
Cool.
so much.
That was a cool one. Thanks, Janet.
Yeah, and thanks so much to all of the energies and entities that have come forward today, and thanks to everybody for tuning in.